Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about unmanned aircraft systems and what they are. So I know a lot of you know about UAVs and, well, this is more like UAS, so it's like all of the UAVs put together and then what each system inside that UAV does. So you've got the categories of UAVs. So there's fixed wing, which means the wings are actually like stuck on, so you can't actually pull them off. So there's a whole bunch of different designs that come with that. And then you've also got rotary wings, so that's like the propellers, which you see in like the little drones that you can get. And so there's like single rotor, multi-rotor, so you got the drones before. Which is like quadcopter, and then you got a hexacopter, so there's 6, and there's octocopter, wow, I can't speak, which is 8 obviously. And then some of them you can make 10, but the 10s are like, I don't know, it's more like if you go beyond 6, it's basically companies that are building their own drones for certain reasons, and it's just them going through figuring out what they need to do, and they built the drone purposely for what they're doing. So there's tilting aircraft as well. So it's like the rotor's like on the top and then the rotor tilts. So like the blades will be on top and then it tilts depending on where it's going. And then there's like a tilt wing. So it's like the entire wing actually tilts, which is ridiculous. And then there's like ducted fan and tilt wing body. And it's like complicated. Like it can become very complicated. So for example, NASA do stuff with tilt wings. I don't think it's really caught on much. Then there's like tail sitters, which is like they sit on their tail, like you sit them down on the tail and they take off like that and they kind of like roll over. Then you've got like ducted fans, just like that little robots that have a fan at the bottom, they go up and look, it's complicated, but it happens. So basically when companies go, okay, well, we think we could use a drone for this, which does happen because drones are now, you can use them for everything. So the thing that they really think about is lift and propulsion. So that generally is how they figure out what sort of configuration they want. So if they want fixed wing, or if they want rotors, or if they just, you know, it's just like basically you've got to look at what you need it for and then figure out what you want to do. So most of the time they I really can't speak today. Okay, so most of the time they categorize by size. So there's not a standard categorization. So depending on what country you're in, so I'm in Australia, obviously Australian. CASA, the Civil Aviation Safety Authority in Australia, is who classifies what our drone sizes are, or our UAV sizes. In America, it will be the Federal Aviation Administration. In New Zealand, it's the Civil Aviation Authority of New Zealand, I'm pretty sure. And then South Africa has a South Africa Civil Aviation Authority, and then there's like the Trinidad and Tobago Civil Aviation Authority, and there's like a whole bunch more, but that's all I can remember off my head. And then national airspace regulators, so they have categories to like help implement regulations for certain sizes. So at the moment, CASA has 3 different categories. So there's micro UAV, which is like less than 100 grams. So they're literally like the little ones that like you can get from just little hobby shops that if you crash them and they die, well, that's all right, you haven't really spent that much on them. A small UAV, however, is like 100 grams up to 150 kilograms for a fixed wing, or 100 kilograms for a rotary wing. So that's literally from like a drone that you can get this big to literally a massive one that you could make. So it's really a massive little field. And then you've got the large UAVs, which are 150 kilograms or above fixed wing, or 100 kilograms rotary wing above. So that's like NASA territory, like, you know, like big aviation, or the Australian space now have like our own little thing that we can do it, like NASA, so you know, they can go out and make these massive ones. And then you've got like the aircraft, specific aircraft sizes. So there's like nano air vehicles, or NAVs. So they're like future little aircrafts, like the size of an insect. So they're like literally like this big, like that's it. So it's like, you know, when you see those movies and there's like a robot fly on the wall that can like hear everything, see everything, and you can move around. Yeah, that's pretty much what they're talking about. Then they've got micro UAVs, which are MAVs. So they're less than 150 millimeters. So that's like, roughly. Look, I don't have a ruler with me, so. Then there's close range UAVs. So that means they only operate up to 100 kilometers. They don't operate further than that. There's also medium range UAVs and technical UAVs, which have a range of 100 to 300 kilometers. Then there's MALEs. There's MALE, which is medium altitude long endurance. So it's like 5 kilometers to 15 kilometers and have a 24-hour endurance time. So they can be up in the air for 24 hours at a time without having to change batteries or recharge them. Then you've got HALEs, which are high altitude long endurance. That's over 15 kilometers in altitude and 24 hours plus in endurance. So for example, a HALE, if you've seen Interstellar, would be the UAV that they find in the first few scenes where he says it's been flying around and he thinks the motherboard or whatever has been fried. Essentially, one of those big ones is what a HALE is, because that would have been up there for years on end, which is what they're saying the future will hold, which a whole bunch of UAVs up there, which is understandable. Pretty much UAVs at the moment are much of a hobby thing, a lot for people between the ages of what, 15 to 25. So if you are interested in all the like UAV building sort of stuff, there's, at the moment, I know in Australia we've got the UAV challenge. So essentially, I know it changes every few years of what's actually happening, but you essentially have to build a UAV which can go out autonomously by itself, track down a person and deliver like water or medicine to it. And that delivery has to be within the reach of that person. So it's like a meter or 2 meters or 20 centimeters, something ridiculous like that. And you have to figure out a way how to drop it, and the UAV will then return back home. And that's all done autonomously. So a lot of teams have entered over previous years. I know a lot of Australian teams have entered, but I don't know how many have actually gone through. It is an Australian competition, but you know, they get teams from like Poland and the Netherlands, and I know TU Delft has entered a couple of times. So over 350 teams essentially entered, and there's like 2,000 team members altogether. So there's a lot of people in this like competition, and it's essentially search and rescue. And then drones you can also build like for like aerial inspections. Other types of drones that could be built are for aerial inspection. So there's like, you know, the power poles and stuff like that. The people just build drones that, you know, they stick a camera on the end and they can actually like figure out whether or not something's stable. So it's a lot of it's used for like the building industry. Then you have DHL, who created a Parcel Copter. So they were essentially tilt rotors, point-to-point delivery system. So it lands and takes off from pack stations. So it like recharges when it goes back to the station. So they trialed it for 3 months from January to March 2016, and they had 130 fully autonomous flights, which is awesome. I don't know how well that would go in suburban areas. Probably would have been a great idea for those that are out in rural areas, especially in Australia. Have a drone just go fly out there, give them the mail, come back. I think that would have been a great idea. So essentially, when you're looking at these UAVs, there's a pre-concept design. So you're looking at the overall needs, objectives, and then you create a concept of operation. So it's like what you actually need to do. So like, does this drone need to fly up, maneuver around a room, find something specific and do something? And then you go through each step and how each will actually work. So you break everything down to figure out what you need. So then you do a potential design. So you go, okay, yeah, cool. So this is what I want it to do. This is essentially my design that I'm thinking of. And you also analyze a lot of alternatives for different things. So obviously, like, you know, be thinking, okay, yeah, cool, I'll stick this on there. But then that doesn't really work well when you've got a camera on there. And then you've got your weight distribution, and then things fall over and just, let's just say it doesn't even take off. That's a very, very, very high possibility. In Australia, for example, even if you had a UAV that was over 700 grams, you can only fly in specific airspace. In Brisbane, which is where I live, it's actually very hard to find it within the city area. There's probably like one park in my vicinity that hasn't got any restrictions on it. Just generally because of the flat paths of airlines and everything like that. So yeah guys, so that's basically what like unmanned aircraft systems are, and then you've got like example missions that I've given you, and just examples of how to use them, what to do with them, best way to come up with an idea. I'm going to keep pushing ConOps to you because, you know, it's a great place to start. So like, I'm at uni, I do aviation and aerospace, and ConOps is pretty much what they mark you on, is how good your ConOps is and how well you can derive what a product needs to be. And if you can't get your ConOps right, they tend to sit you down and be like, well, obviously you've missed a whole bunch of things that these, like, they pretend they're the customers, so they're just like, you've missed a whole bunch of things that we as the customers want you to do. And then you really go through and like go little bit by little bit. So these documents that these companies make are obviously like 200 pages long, especially if you look at Boeing stuff, that just preliminary designs are like 200 plus pages long. But yeah, so I definitely recommend that if you guys are creating a UAV or want to create a UAV for a specific purpose, you obviously first start off with your ConOps and yeah, go from there. So thanks guys for watching. If you like, hit the like button, subscribe.